Hi, loves. My name is Claire Killalay, and I am so honored to be here as part of Saoirse Connolly's Rise of the Rebel Matriarchal Now Summit, and even more so to be chatting about the topic of shame, which I speak a lot about, and I'm going to speak into it specifically today. Shame as a weapon of silence. And really, what we want to do in today's session is moving from that inherited shame that may have been imposed upon us into a space of embodied authority. And we're not necessarily going to be excavating trauma during this session, even though quite often shame sits side by side with these type of experiences. Really, the intention for today is going to be to gain a deeper understanding about shame, how it may have shaped our lives on a personal and collective level, and then in turn, how it's been weaponized against us. And even that question, would a weapon be more powerful in a suppressing a nation? Or is shame actually more powerful? And this is just something to think about, maybe whatever your heritage is or your culture or whatever countries that you come from as well. And what we will be doing in today's session is understanding shame on a deeper level, personal and collectively. I'll bring through some somatic exercises and some journaling for you to reflect upon. And also, you'll receive a channeled transmission from me. So, it's not necessarily about us clearing shame fully or removing it, because ultimately we know that people who do not have shame are a defect of empathy or they could be classed as a psychopath. So, that's not where we're going to in any shape or form. What we're moving into a space of is redefining the relationship that we have with shame, realigning our understanding of it so that we can really step into that space of confidence, that we feel comfortable being seen, that we're free to share our voice, that we feel empowered, and we're in that space of embodied authority that we spoke about. So, before we begin, I'd love for us to just ground with a couple of breaths and just really land into this space together. So, the intention is for you to just feel comfortable. You don't have to hold yourself up in any way. Just placing your hands somewhere that feels nurturing and comforting for you on your body. And just feeling that gentle touch against your body. And this is where we're going to breathe into on these breaths. So closing your eyes whenever you're ready, taking a slow, long, deep breath in. Feeling this connection to the body and really letting the slow exhale ground and land you. Breathing in again, feeling this connection to the body. On the inhale, and really letting the exhale ground and land you. And taking one final breath, even slower this time. Feeling the connection to the body. The inhale and really letting the exhale land and ground you into this space. And just taking your time to ground, to land, to feel your body, and just to be here as we move through today's session together. So just opening your eyes whenever you are ready. So who am I is a good question. I am Claire Killalay, and I am the CEO of Clarity. And I support men and women to reclaim their power, purpose, and passion of life. I'm many things. I'm a shapeshifter. I'm a medicine woman. I am an in-mass channel. I'm a keener, which means I bring through the Celtic tradition of grief release through the voice. And I'm also still working corporates. I'm a workplace wellness advisor, and I'm a woman who is obsessed with shame. And I say this because I see shame as one of the most powerful portals that we can heal through and step into our power through if we are someone who has been confined and constricted by it. And my personal experience with shame has been having an eating disorder for 20 years that was hidden and silent. So there was a lot of body shame there, a lot of secrecy around that. But in more recent times, also miscarrying a few years ago, I was really Became more familiar with collective shame and inherited shame as well that can be handed to us. And as a woman born in Ireland, I really feel the shame of what has happened in our culture and in so many different cultures and countries of colonialization, of land disputes, of our language being taken away from us, and shame being the weapon that was used for that. And, spaces where we were again colonized by the church or suppressed sexually, or we're ashamed to be seen, to actually speak our truth, to be heard, to be witnessed, to be acknowledged as a woman. And these are the type of conversations that are swept fully under the carpet. And if we go deeper into the abuse that we've experienced in the Magdalene laundries, in the workhouses, and shame being that weapon that was used as well. So these are the spaces that I feel in my bones and my being from my country, and also shame being so responsible for abuse of power that we're seeing on such a fucking grand global scale at the moment. And, I know we're all connecting and experiencing that in our own way. And knowing that shame is the weapon that's used to perpetuate that, and to continue this abuse of women and children, and the mistrust of the feminine and the masculine, and the bullying that we see being present. And it isn't just always in those greater deeper trauma spaces. There is so much in shame of being seen, the shame of being showing our creative gifts, the shame of being actually sharing our singing voice, if that is yeah, something that we are concealing due to shame that's maybe been inherited or handed to us, or maybe it's our own personal experience. So these are some of the topics that might be real and raw that I'm speaking to, or more connecting to the everyday experience of shame. And I cannot not bring them into the room when I'm opening up to talk about shame and how it's used against us as a weapon. But we all have our different ways in which we relate to shame and the experiences that we've had in our own life. And what I want to really speak about more so is the function of shame. If we were to begin from there, then what is the actual function of shame? And ironically, when so many of us experience shame, it's very isolating and it's very disconnecting for us. But actually, the function of shame on a very primal level is to keep us within the boundaries of society and to actually create a sense of belonging if we are within a healthy shame experience. But for so often, we're still in that primal response. So if we bring ourselves back to feeling safe as a animal being, if we are within the pack or the tribe, then we feel this sense of safety. But if we are not, and we're excluded from the tribe, if we're in that toxic shame response, then the result of that is death. And we have not updated the data from then to current times to know that actually, if we are in a shame response, that the outcome isn't going to be as detrimental as it used to be. And so quite often what happens us is we have a shame response that can be so visceral and really experiencing it on such an intense level in the body. For so many of us, a shame response can completely override our entire system. We might have a flushing red experience. You might have sweaty palms. You might just be sweating in general. It might be a lot of heat in the body. It might feel very dull or heavy, or we might hunch our shoulders over, or just make ourselves small in a very physical level. So this is how dramatic the response can also be, just on a somatic level. But what I suppose the difference I want to explain is we talk about healthy shame and toxic shame, which the research is namely due to John Bradshaw, who's wrote an amazing book called Healing the Shame That Binds You, if this is a topic that you'd like to go a bit deeper into. And most of us experience, when we think of toxic shame, it's that self-deprecation, self-flagellation, negative dialogue, that making ourselves small. But actually, when we're in an experience of healthy shame, which creates natural boundaries and limitations for us to keep us within the realms of society. And an example of this that I use is Generally, we're not going to go and do our shopping in the supermarket naked. Why? Because we want to keep that healthy boundary so we stay in a sense of belonging within society. And also just so we make the shopping trip a little bit less intense for ourselves. So that's an example of healthy shame. And it really can be, I suppose, more so most of our minds go to toxic shame when we think about it. And the research around that shows that toxic shame in itself is that space of like really moving us into disconnection, moving us into addiction, maybe might be the result of that, or maybe some form, it could be the root of dysfunction that many of us have experienced. So that's a little bit more of an explanation and an interpretation of shame. Also speaking to internal shame versus external shame. So when we are in an internal shame response, and this a really common example that many of us can relate to is school and studying. So it would be if I failed that exam, then now I am worthless. So I failed, so I am worthless. But an example then of external shame might have been handed to us by our teacher. It could have been our primary caregiver, or it could have been other students in our class in school that might have said you're stupid or you're no good at maths. And then you internalize that feeling of as well, they have said I'm not good at this subject, so I must be worthless. So then we have external shame being internalized. And so this is just this understanding again of how shame can be used as that weapon for us. And then we to suppress us, and then we internalize that from our own response system. And so, if we want to look at the elements of shame as well, because we all have our own unique way that we experience shame, but the five elements that can signpost us, just so we know shame's present, we know it's in the room, we've already named that it can be in the room through many traumatic experiences that we've had. If there is silence present, we don't speak up. If there is secrecy, because it thrives in hidden places. If there is judgment present, that being from like ourselves or with others, maybe there is exposure or like fear of being seen as a weakness or a failure. So that really hiding again of the self. And then the social mirroring. And so what this means is shame is not always created alone. So often it's created in relationship, which is what I really want to speak to. So, shame is not just personal, it is relational. And this really matters because when we are trying to heal shame, we cannot fully do that alone. We need the support of others. Whether that is in relationship, whether that is with a therapist, whether that is with a coach or a healer or someone who can support you in that process of healing, because we didn't create it alone. So this is why we need to heal it together. And that is even what today is about, just that speaking about it and that actually sharing about our experiences of shame. It also, it switches up from that space of isolation that we spoke about and really brings us into a space of belonging. And so, speaking to this a little bit more, there also is cultural shaming or societal shaming that I wanted to speak to as well, because when we talk about shame being used as a weapon, it's like, what do I even mean about that? And as a woman from Ireland, I'll speak to this, which I have already, the mother and baby homes, the Magdalene laundries or the workhouses, or the institutional religious abuse that we very much experienced through shame being the weapon or the chosen weapon that was used. On a global level, that also can apply to so many also other countries where you've had mother and baby homes or workhouses, but also LGBT criminalization. Shame is the weapon that is used. Public shaming of sexual assault advisor or sexual assault survivors, and we are all experiencing that on a global level, looking at the Epstein files and how appallingly the survivors are being treated, even in the now. that was like the one thing that they could have also, if they want to say that it was unknown what happened in the past, they have full autonomy and control over how the survivors could be treated in the present and still shamed being used as a weapon for them. State control over women's bodies when it comes to abortion and shame being used to silence us, men and women, to regulate or control sexuality or intimacy, to protect institutions that are so often responsible for this abuse that so many people have experienced, or the preserving of the hierarchy, so the abuse of power. And so when we look at this, it's like, here are some examples of cultural and societal shame, which so many of us have experienced. And why I wanted to just delineate these down a little bit is just to, first, also to know how common it is for us to experience shame. I've already mentioned my own body shame at the beginning, which is something that I have had a lot of experience in. Uh, Acknowledging and owning my shame and then really reprogramming my relationship with shame. But it's really interesting when it comes to research around like external shame. One place that we receive more judgment from in our family unit is if we are overweight. Our family are the most likely to give us judgment or comments around this. However, if you were to experience racial shaming, your family would give you the most support around that issue. So it's interesting how that can shift and change on a personal and a collective level as well. Um, and body shaming is something that is like deeply embedded within our culture, particularly around women. All of these you know, s- standards or these, different ways that we're meant to look, and it's been completely imposed upon us in so many different ways through the media and through TV and magazines and all of those spaces. And, when we really, like historically, our bodies as women would have been honored by our community in rites of passage ceremonies. And we would have been offered support and celebration for, even us moving into that next rite of passage, which might be our bleed coming for the first time. But also, so often in society, that can be another space that's very much shamed for us, maybe women of my generation. I'm hoping that the younger generations are receiving more support and guidance around that rite of passage as well, and it being more celebrated. So there are just some areas that are very present in our culture where shame can be present and seated. And so taking a look at these list of 12 different areas that can have cultural or societal shaming, and maybe even writing down what are the top three for you? What are the three that you have experienced the most in your life? So there's body and image or weight shaming, sexual or intimacy shame, mental health shaming, emotional expression shame. So, that, you're too emotional. Financial or money shame, which sometimes can be more intense than a lot of the rest of them. Gender roles shaming, parenting or motherhood shaming, religious or spiritual shaming, relationship or marital shaming, either being single or being actually in a relationship that maybe is aligned or not aligned, education shaming that I've already spoken to, career or status shaming, and then adolescent or adult bullying, which is so debilitating for so many of us that are experiencing maybe in an adult space, or that you've experienced shaming as an adolescent. It can be so crippling for us still to the current day. This is a lot of the work that I do with men and women that I work with. So just tuning into maybe what are your top three, and just witnessing, how it even feels for you to name them or differentiate them through different experiences that you've had in your life. And what can also be really beautiful is after today's session to even open up a conversation with someone in your life to really speak maybe about some of this shame that you have experienced, because it's such a beautiful quote, shame dies when stories are told in safe spaces, and was told to me by a friend of mine, Sean Kelly Ford. And I will say the woman's name at the end, who it was actually said by. And this loosens the grip if we feel resourced and we feel comfortable enough to share the experience that we've had. Resourcing is very important. Do I feel in an embodied resource place to share this story? And then we share with someone else who maybe we haven't shared that experience before, can also be a way that we loosen the grip that the shame may have on us. So, if we're talking about shame being used on a collective level as well, I really wanted to speak about shame that can be handed down or inherited through our family, through culture, through religion, through collective systems of control. And this is what I've been speaking to really since the beginning, about how this is our internal shame or the external shame that's been handed to us. And for so many of us, shame doesn't begin with us. It's been given to us on an ancestral level, or even on a lineage level, or on a cultural level that we spoke to. And John Bradshaw, I'm going to mention him again. Um, his research speaks to the carried shame, so the kind that is inherited when our parents project their unhealed wounds onto us. And so this is so often done on an unconscious level, that their wounds are handed down to us. And that's what we then internalize from our primary caregivers. And there's so much research also to share around neuroscience and epigenetics show that trauma, including shame, can leave imprints on our nervous system and even in our genes. And when we understand how deeply that shame is being handed down and being carried to with us as well. And I suppose one example that I always speak to is so often the people pleaser, that we feel that we've seen that exampled or modeled by us, by our parents, either our mother or our father, whoever modeled that to us. That can so often be what's handed down to us as well, that it's like, I have to please, I have to appease. So we're in our phone response. And so this is just really important to know that this is what can be carried down to us, and that that in itself has an interwoven shame response in there also, because that can be a very common experience or a behavior that a lot of us can relate to. And so often it isn't all yours. So what you have been carrying may have been projected onto you. There may have been silencing or ancestral wounding, again, that's been handed down. And to share more about like how this moves through the collectives. So cultures often use shame as a control. Don't be too loud, don't be too sexual, don't be too different. Do not stand out from the crowd, because this is unsafe. And shame is the weapon that is used to control that. But then so often families carry down unspoken rules. That's what I was talking about on an unconscious level. We don't talk like that, or sentences like that's not who we are as a family. And so this is imposing these rules or these regulations. We don't speak up for ourselves. We're not that type of family. We don't use our voice. We don't move into confrontation. Again, that's keeping you in that fawn response and that people pleasing role. Or the collective shame that can be shown up that around colonialization, religious dogma, patriarchy, and they've shaped us even before our language has come into play as well. So how do we, if this is what we have living in our bodies and or genes, and it's living actually in our nervous system, how do we clear it? And so witnessing, just naming the shame that didn't even start with us. And so often, and I'm going to show you an exercise in the next slide that will give you a practice of how to differentiate that voice of shame. Is it mine or is it someone else's who has handed it to me? And even the by saying the sentence, this actually isn't mine. This isn't my response. This isn't how I actually want to respond to that altercation. I would like to share my voice. It's like, it isn't my voice that tells me to silence myself or that tells me to be quiet or that shushes myself. So it's like, that's not mine. So ultimately, if it's not yours, that you can hand that back. You don't need to continue carrying that. Embodiment is another space of like, how does that feel quite literally in my body? And feeling into where the shame is located in your body and giving it even an expression. That might be through the voice, that might be through movement, that might be through breath, that might be through a deep cathartic release. And I'm also going to show you a somatic practice that you can use for that shortly as well, just to locate that, how shame is experienced in your body. Ritual is such a powerful way of also offering back the shame that maybe has been handed to us. And rites of passage work is a really beautiful way, or a deeply intentional ritual space is such a powerful way to really like hand it back, connecting it back to the earth, the spirits, the ancestors, really using that collective energy again. Shame, if it's a toxic experience, can isolate and disconnect us. But when we're in a healthy expression of shame and we do it in community and we do it in the collective, that rewrites that pattern for us. And it really brings in a beautiful initiation when we're witnessed and seen and not just like honored, but celebrated as we show that vulnerability of our shame and actually choose to hand that back as well. And so, community also being another beautiful space when we move into like circles or programs or containers where we're actually like rewriting these patterns through sharing, through connecting, through educating ourselves around shame and how it is experienced maybe on a personal level, on a collective level. Even just you being here in this moment is healing that shame on a beautiful community level because you're choosing to redefine the relationship that you have with it. And choice is so important. So each time that we refuse to carry the story that isn't ours, then we stop it from being passed to the next generation. Then you are that cycle breaker in itself is clearing the shame for the next generation. And it isn't about erasing the past. It is more about liberating ourselves and our lineage from the freaking decades and centuries of silence that has suppressed us for so long. So when we hand it back, what was never ours to hold, we reclaim that space of power. We reclaim that space of sovereignty, not just for ourselves, but for everyone who comes after us as well. And so that is an invitation for us all to be that cycle breaker, to no longer have to carry what isn't yours and to liberate yourself as well as your community and your lineage. But I might even just take a breath after that before we move into the next phase. So just take one slow, long, deep breath in and land us. So these are some really beautiful and simple shame practices that I give to my clients so that one, you can really become a little bit more familiar. It is about creating, I suppose, in its essence, more intimacy or familiarity with your shame. How do you actually experience shame in your body? And so this is about resourcing yourself because we have already spoken about shame being carried in the nervous system. But for so often it is uncomfortable as fuck to experience shame in your body. I'm sure you can relate to that. You know, when we experience it, like the first thing we want to do for so many of us is run, or we want to fight, flight, freeze, We want to, if we're flushing red, we want to ignore it. If we are in a deep sweaty response, we really just want to like move away from that as soon as we can. So our body is uncomfortable with experiencing shame in our body. And what we want to do through this somatic practice is start to build resilience when we are experiencing shame so that our nervous system can actually feel somewhat comfortable or at least more comfortable than it has been before when we experience shame. So what we're trying to do firstly is locate it in the body. So where do you feel it? For so many of us, it can be in the throat or the chest or deep within the gut area. It can be in another space for you, but that is so often the more familiar spaces. We really want to connect to the movement that's attached to it. Like, what's the energy? How is it moving? How does that feel in our body? Noticing if it's uncomfortable or if the space that feels comfortable for us. And really, what we're attuning to in this a somatic practice is the feeling in the body, not the story that's being created with it. We're not connecting into that. We're just connecting to this in a somatic space and seeing where that intensity is for us, maybe on a scale of 1 to 10 at the beginning, and then we'll look at that as a scale of 1 to 10 then at the end. So there might be something, I have mentioned quite a few different topics and spaces in our lives that we can experience shame. So maybe connecting to one of those in this moment, or maybe just connecting to some, for me, a large one was body shame. So that's one that I can connect into quite easily because I've had a lot of experience with that myself. So somewhere or experience that you connect to shame is what we're going to tune into now. So inviting you to just make yourself comfortable once again. Again, just really not feeling like you need to hold your body. And we're going to deepen into this shame somatic practice. So I'll invite you to close your eyes whenever you're ready. Just really tuning into the body, taking a few slow, long, deep breaths again, breathing in deeply. Feeling the connection to the body and landing. Breathing in again, feeling the connection to the body once again. And really grounding yourself on the exhale. Breathing in again, really feeling this connection to the body once more. And really landing and grounding on the exhale. And just connecting for a few moments to somewhere or some way that you have experienced shame. Maybe it's in the past or maybe it's in the present moment. Just connecting to that experience in your own way, in your own time, and really transitioning this into the body. And maybe if you can't grasp something immediately, maybe there's something, maybe it's that exam in school or that body shame or that space where, the last time maybe that you even flushed red. And when you connect into that experience, really tuning now into the body and just noticing where you feel the shame in your body mostly, or where the energy is leaning towards. Maybe it's the throat, maybe it's the chest area or the gut. And whenever you have located that, placing your hands on that area of your body, really feeling this connection through the hands. And just spending a few moments here, becoming a little bit more familiar with how you experience shame in your body. And then just noticing what the movement of this is like in your body. What is the sensation attaching to it? Is it a dull, heavy feeling or experience? Or is it a very high, anxious, moving energy that's swirling in your body. And so whenever you have connected to that sensation, maybe even rating this from 1 to 10, 1 being very mild, 10 being really intensely in that experience. So just naming that number. And so what we're going to do now is breathe into the sensation only. So breathing into whatever that sensation is in that location in your body. Really feeling this deeply on the inhale. Oof. And as you exhale, really feeling the grip loosening. So breathing in again deeply into the sensation, into that area of the body, holding for a second. Oh, and really letting the exhale, feeling a loosening or a lessening of that grip. So continuing these breaths, breathing into the sensation, feeling it deeply. Oh, and really loosening the grip on the exhale. Breathing in again into the sensation. Really feeling this deeply on the inhale. Oh, and really feeling it beginning to loosen as you exhale. So continuing these deep breaths in your own time, breathing into the sensation on the inhale and really letting the exhale release. Letting the exhale maybe sound, maybe really letting yourself like shake and move the body if you feel, and just allowing that exhale to really feel this loosening of the grip. So breathing in deeply into the sensation. Ah, ah, and loosening on the exhale. And just continuing these breaths slowly in your own time and in your own way. And just continuing this now until this comes to a natural conclusion, or at least until it feels like the grip is lessening. So emotions may arise, some anger may arise. It's all very, very welcome. And so just continuing this in your own time. Maybe for you, there might be more that you desire to release. And if so, I'd invite you to pause this recording for a moment until you desire to bring this to a natural close for yourself. Or you may be just bringing this to a natural close for yourself in this moment. And so, whenever you've come to that space of naturally feeling this lessening, just noticing what you feel in your body now. If you were to rate that now, that scale from a 1 to a 10, what would that feel like for you now in this moment in your body? And just noticing how you feel, noticing that area, if it was your throat or your chest or your gut, how that feels in this moment. So I'll invite you to open your eyes whenever you are ready. And so just returning slowly and just knowing that this practice can be used as a resource whenever shame arises. So maybe you're at the dinner table and you realize that you're having a flushing red response to a topic of conversation or inquiry, or you're, about to do a public speaking event And it's really, you're feeling a lot of nervousness, but not just nervousness. There might be some shame that's rising because it's really interesting. We're more afraid of public speaking, research shows, than we are even of dying. So shame is such a suppressor for so many of us of sharing our voice, particularly in a public setting. So if that is you, this practice can be really beautiful practice to, again, build that familiarity, but build that resilience in your body. It's like, okay, I might experience shame, but I'm actually okay to experience this shame before I give that talk or that presentation. So what you can do is just practice this maybe in the run up to that presentation, or even on the day if you're noticing, okay, I'm really having this intense shame response. Maybe I'm going to take myself into the bathroom for 5 minutes, do this breath work so that I feel the grip of the shame actually loosening, and that I'm freeing up space in my being so that I can share my voice or whatever it is for you that's maybe being restricted by the shame. So that is a practice or a resource you can take with yourself after today. I am going to give you another one that you can do in your own time. This is about differentiating this internal shame and the external shame that we experience. So is it yours or is it theirs? And so what this practice is in your own time, you can do it now if you like. You can also have the luxury of just pausing, which is great. Listing out 10 shames. So we've already talked through maybe some of the collective or societal shame, and maybe there's ones more on a personal level that you connect to or relate to. So choosing your top one or choosing your top three if you have more time to work through it. And then you literally sitting with that. It's like, whose shame is it? And you can name that as internal, you can name that as external. But when you sit with it so often, whose voice do you hear? So is it your own internal voice that you're hearing? Or maybe is it that teacher from school? Or maybe it's a parent? Or maybe it's someone that you went to school with, that's the voice that you hear. And then you tune into and write down, what age did I first hear that? So, what age was I maybe when I first experienced this shame? So, it could be quite young or it might be recent. And ultimately, what we're going to write down. So, we write down all of these questions beside it. Whose is it? Whose voice do I hear? What age was I when I first heard it? And ultimately, what we want to do is start to build familiarity with shame, so much so that we can start to actually receive the information in it, that we can maybe start to learn from it or understand what it's trying to actually teach us. So the somatic practice, we're building resilience in our nervous system. And this, we're actually building like a deeper awareness. So when I flush red and I become embarrassed, what's that telling me about myself? There's usually a little droplet of wisdom or information held within that. Am I embarrassed because I didn't actually do my homework that day? Or am I embarrassed because I actually said something I probably shouldn't have said? Or I didn't say something that I should have said? And that's where the red flush comes in. And it's like, actually, is there something that I could have learned from that? Maybe I won't say that about that person again, or I won't say that sentence because I realize that it's hurtful or it's not very respectful in the situation I was in. Whatever that wisdom is, there will be information in there that can be received. So that's really where we're trying to get to with this work. So these are practices you can take with yourself after today. And so I did want to close with some reflection questions for you. And so these you can journal in your own time as well. So it really is about, whose shame am I actually carrying, which the previous exercise might have supported you with, or whose voice do I hear when it speaks through me or inside me. And the what was unsafe for the women and the men in my lineage. When we speak to this, it's like, okay, well, what does that actually mean to me? And if I gave the shame back to where it came from, what freedom would that open up for me in the now? And so these are just some reflective questions for you to sit with and to explore. on a deeper level of where is that anchoring from? Where is it coming from? Where is it inherited from? And I now have the choice. Do I get to choose to carry this with me? Or do I choose to carry this down even the lineage lines? So these are also, you can pause in this moment to complete these or do these at another time if you feel. So I am going to move into a transmission, even just for a few minutes to really integrate this work because shame can be quite a heavy topic or a vulnerable topic to explore. And I really like to round us off collectively together as we're all receiving this inner nervous system so that we can just land this work deeply into our body. So you once again can make yourself comfortable. You can be lying down, you can be sitting if you feel whatever feels really aligned and comfortable for you and your body and your being. And I'm going to play a little bit of music in the background just so that you can really drift off into this space. Um, just for you to really receive what is here. So hopefully you can hear that. Beautiful. So I'm inviting you to close your eyes once again, just really deepening into the body, deepening into all that you experienced here, all that you received here, deepening into all that you've understood, and all that you've learned, and all that you've opened, and all that you've explored. Really allowing yourself to land, ground, to be, find that space of simplicity internally. So breathing in deeply once again into the body. Feeling this connection to the body. Breathing in once again into the body. And landing. And allowing the breath to guide you deeper. Breathing into the body. And really landing as you exhale. And just allowing the breaths to guide you deeper, to travel deeper, to journey deeper into the abyss of you, journey into the realm of silency and secrecy within, journey into the realms of exploration and opening within, to allow the shame to find a new way, to allow the blame and the pain to carve a new day, to allow the oppression and the suppression to be seen, to be witnessed, to cultivate a space in the inner, to find a cavern of simplicity that lies within you, to find the realms of life that leads through you, to allow the blood, the tears to beseech through you, to know that you are in your own essence, the power is within you. To know that you are in your own exploration, the light is embedded in you. The darkness does not engulf you, it is through you. It is part of you, a blessing and a curse, a space in which you have been earned, a space for which you cultivate the gifts of your power, a space in which the wisdom of your wounds will no longer devour. They call to you, they speak to you, they beseech you to see them, to receive them, to perceive them, to believe that you are an empowered being, a person of cultivation and co-creation and living life with deep internalization. The intrication, the indoctrination that you no longer have to subscribe to, that you no longer have to hide to, that you no longer have to suppress to. As you weave your way, you weave a new day. You open into a space in which you pray. Your prayers are heard and answered. A space that is anchored through you. For you are here, a being of extraordinary power, a being of light and darkness in every waking hour, an integrated being of humanity living in a space of individuality and community, interweaving both aspects of in both elements of you to be, to receive, to believe in your essence, your rights, your gifts, in which you weave through life. You feed, sow, plant the deepest roots within you to the soil, to know that it is your right to be, it is your life to live, it is your way to cultivate a new way in which you no longer have to recoil what you say. You are here, a voice of empowered embodiment, awakening through the cracks of the earthly place where you do not have to be tolerant, where you are here to share your light, your life, your voice, share what it is of you all in your voice, your power and your essence known, the space in which you have truly and exquisitely grown. Find your voice, find your power, find yourself in this waking hour. You do not need to hide, to conceal, silence to secretly, rework the wheel. For you are here, embodied, empowered, awakening, arising, the matriarchal power. So just letting these words weave through, letting them seed and land and breathe within you, letting them cultivate through your being as you receive, as you perceive, as you reweave through the bones, the blood, calling yourself home. Just taking some slow, long, deep breaths in to call yourself back. Breathing in deeply. And really landing your body on the exhale. Breathing in again deeply. And landing your body back on the exhale. And just taking one final, slow, long, deep breath in. Just to really land you back into this space. And opening your eyes whenever you are ready. So, my loves, thank you so much for being here. I am deeply grateful for your time, for your energy, and to Saoirse for having me as part of this extraordinary work, for this matriarchal energy that is enlightening and enlivening us all. And I will share my contact details below. So if this landed with any of you or you desired to connect with me, I would love to hear from you. And so my Instagram page is Clarity Coaching, or my website is www.clarity.ie. And I can show you this for a second because also what I wanted to show you before we close, and I actually didn't speak to it at the beginning, was this beautiful artwork that I'm sharing by another amazing, amazing woman. She is an absolute truth speaker and an art activist called Dee Mulrooney. So you may know her already anyway, but I just really wanted to name her beautiful artwork that I have been sharing, because she is someone who also really speaks to shame on a very cultural and exposing level. So this is her artwork here. which I'll show you again actually here just before we close, just so you can see it. A stunning piece here on Bridget. So this is just wanted to really name that as well because it's featured in today's session. So Shanae, my loves, thank you so much for being here. Here are my details. I would absolutely love to hear from you if anything landed, and most importantly, if any of these topics were sensitive or vulnerable for you and you like desire any extra support or information, that I'm very much here as well. So grow more, Shanae, and enjoy receiving. And I also just wanted to close to share that I'm also an IMBAS channel. So that's what I was bringing through in that transmission for you to receive intuitively what felt to be weaved in that moment. So I hope that that really embedded and rewove all that you've received together in this moment.